the academy does prepare you for the basics of how to be a firefighter, but living as a firefighter, man, that's a whole nother ball game, man. Not only the stuff that starts to pile on, but how do you deal with it? What is your release? How do you escape? All right, everybody, welcome back to the Next Level Dad Fitness Podcast. So excited for all of us to be together today. Very thankful for you joining us. And in today's episode, I have yet another guest. He is a firefighter fitness and wellness coach all the way from Michigan, and his name is Robert Nebergall. He's been coaching firefighters, first responders, and that's kind of how we met up. Found him online, saw his content, and I thought it was super in line with the stuff that I talk about. So, of course, we had to connect, and here we are today. Robert, good morning, brother. How you doing?
Good morning, man. Thank you for having me. I'm doing really well. Happy to be here.
Right on, dude. So, yeah, it is a 3-hour time difference in Michigan. How's the weather over there right now?
Oh, we're finally starting to turn the corner, man. It's been a lot of doom and gloom. 4 months of clouds. Finally seeing the sun for the first time in a while. So it's not the same over there. I get it. That's the cost.
Yeah, man. California, I will say we do get this amazing weather 10, 11 months out of the year. But I did spend some time in Reno, Nevada. I went to high school over there, and I'm familiar with the cold. It is cold from about October to May, and then it turns the corner, and it is beautiful. I don't know if you've ever been to Reno, but it's a beautiful place.
No, I haven't been to Reno, but I can tell you Michigan in the summer is going to be a place you want to stop by at some point in your life. That's for sure.
Absolutely, man. I'm definitely going to make that put that in the bucket list because I just hear beautiful things. So we're on social media. We're helping firefighters, and we're basically trying to serve in a different capacity, right? We're firefighters. We're serving the community. But now we're online fitness coaches helping firefighters regain their health, wellness, fitness. So from your experience, why is it that firefighters are falling out of shape? Why is their health and wellness going down? The public thinks all we do is work out and just wait for calls anyways. So why would a firefighter be out of shape? How does that even happen?
Yeah, this is an interesting problem, and I think we have to distinguish between two things. And I'm sure you've heard it, I'm sure you've felt it, but a lot of guys get out of the academy and refer back to that 5-10 years down the line as that's the best shape I was ever in, right? It was the day I walked out of the academy. And I think what the academy does is it teaches you how to be a firefighter, right? Outside of your training that you're going to get at your department, that's where the real experience and time on really starts to show itself. But they teach you how to be a firefighter, the basic fundamentals. They don't teach you how to live as a firefighter. And there's a distinction between that. So we talk about the academy, and being in academy shape, being academy fit is not being career fit. And when you throw in stuff to the equation that comes along with the lifestyle, whether we're talking about 6 calls after midnight, running on chronic sleep deprivation, the culture around food, the tax that it brings to your life, the time that it takes you away from your family. A lot of these guys come home and they're like, listen, I got time to, either spend it with my family or I have time to go to the gym, or at least it feels like that's the decision. It feels like this is what I have to choose between. And a lot of people are going to choose, well, I've already been gone for 24, 48, in some cases 72 hours, maybe even longer. We got guys doing 120-hour shifts sometimes.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
So then you say, hey, first thing I got to do when I get home is work out. It's that, or I haven't seen my family in 5 days. Well, then that starts to change the equation. These aren't the things that the academy prepares you for. And I don't know about you, but they talk about, hey, what are the things that take firefighters out of the game? They were upfront about the fact that cardiac issues were present, that cancer is highly elevated, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and suicide. But at least at my academy, they pretty much gave me a pat on the ass out the door and said, good luck. There was never any, hey, how do you actually like balance these things in your life once you're on the job? What are the strategies? What are the things you need to be aware of? What are the detriments? How do I have something that makes sense for the lifestyle that I've chosen in this career of service? Right. So it boils down to, when you're in the academy, you can get in shape because you have a structured PT schedule 5 days a week, 2 hours at a time. But you also get to come home every night, sleep in your own bed, and everything's very structured and consistent and stable. You've been on for any amount of time, those things that would make you successful in the academy, they're going to evaporate when you get on the job. So we need to act differently, think differently, and move differently than what you were kind of brought up expecting in the academy. That's what I've seen.
Yeah, so that'll come back to knowledge and experience, right? You're going to have to find out for yourself what actually works for you. And those first couple of years, I've seen that, okay, you're young enough probably to be able to power through the sleepless nights and power through, um, the things that you're seeing maybe aren't affecting you in the way that they will affect you down the road, because you're watching them and you're seeing them for the first time. Maybe you're seeing a crazy accident or a house fire where you had to pull people out and they didn't make it. You start to see these things and they start to build up over the years. And all of that now starts to weigh on you in a way that didn't weigh on you maybe the first couple of years on the job. You were just kind of young, excited, and all of this stuff starts to pile up. And now you got to carry this on top of, maybe you're now married and now you're in a relationship and you have kiddos, and then you start piling up all these responsibilities. And now, where does fitness and where does eating come into play? And kind of how you mentioned, the academy does prepare you for the basics of how to be a firefighter, but living as a firefighter, man, that's a whole nother ball game, man. Not only the stuff that starts to pile along, but how do you deal with it? What is your release? How do you escape? Right? How do you put this weight onto something else? And man, that's such a good point. I've been diving into all of the firefighter, the sleep, the schedule, and all of that stuff. And you touched on some of those points. Sleep obviously is the big one. I've seen guys work 120s and beyond, right? That's 5 days on, more than 5 days. And say you're on a busy paramedic or a busy engine or whatever you're on, and you're getting woken up constantly. What is that doing to your hormone levels? What is that doing to your stress response? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can talk about it not just from how it feels, but I can talk about it from the data that I was able to collect, right? When I was on the job. The Whoop I wore almost as an experiment, and I could look at this thing and tell you, you know, at every point of the night that I got a call by looking at this, because you can see, all right, at 2, 4:30, and 6:15, you know, spike in a heart rate going from 48 to 110 in 10 seconds. So what does that physiologically do to the body when you experience that? Whether it's release of cortisol, and what they've come to find is that it mimics that stress response releases platelets into the bloodstream. So you're talking about a clotting factor inside that your body's releasing because of that stress response in the expectation that there's going to be some kind of trauma or harm. And so when we talk about the compounding effects, whether we're looking at chronically elevated cortisol or whether we're looking at, the actual platelet factor, we know that more common releases of platelets, more high stress responses directly correlates with atherosclerosis and, ACS, right? So if that's happening constantly, the more exposure to that is the higher you're compounding that risk factor. So the real key in that situation is for every time that you're going to have an elevated stress response, and this could be in your waking hours or it could be, being woken up from sleep. One of the key defining characteristics is if you're always living at 10, how do you recover and how do you downregulate? This often becomes a nervous system problem. So what are the tools you have at your disposal to, the word that you used is like offload, or to kind of, put that stress somewhere? What's the tools you have at your disposal, whether that's, a practice of meditation, yoga nidra, a good sleep protocol that naturally down regulates you in preparation for quality sleep. And the argument that I get, whether it's online or the questions that come up with the clients that I work with, well, how am I supposed to do this if I'm on shift? And I think the point is, no matter what, you're going to sacrifice some years of your life being in the fire service. That's the trade-off, and that's part of what it means to be of service. The question is, do you want that sacrifice to be worth 30 years, or do you want it to be worth 3? Because the point has never been to be perfect, and firefighters have this tendency to take an all or nothing approach with things. Have you ever met an all or nothing firefighter? It's
Oh yeah,
hey, if I
man.
can't have perfect sleep all the time, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not going to bother. If
Yeah.
I can't do it 7 out of 7 days, why would I even try? So the point has never been perfection. The point has been, how do you minimize and mitigate the damage as much as possible? As much as is reasonably possible. So if you're not putting priority into these things when you're off shift, if you're not putting an extreme emphasis on your recovery, then you're going to be edging yourself slowly but surely towards more and more damage, whether it's metabolic or mental or any of the above. So recovery has to be the foundation of any lifestyle that a firefighter participates in.
Man, so many good points there. I'll definitely begin to unpack one of the biggest things, and that I try to hit on my content and through these podcasts, is firefighter sleep and recovery. I had a recent piece of content where I talked about giving yourself an alarm clock to go to bed, not an alarm clock to wake up. When we're on the job, yes, that is the trade-off. You're not going to get perfect sleep. There is a cost of this, service that we're providing. What I'm focusing on and what I'm talking about is set an alarm for when you go to bed, when you begin to unplug. And I've mentioned it, for me at 8 p.m., I set an alarm like, hey, now this is the last little hour that I'm going to have to engage with the kiddos. I'm going to read them something. We're going to read some scripture because that's what we believe in our home. And this is the time to wind down. 9 p.m., I have a secondary alarm, and that is, hey, you now need to go upstairs and you need to go to bed, because this is how I control the controllables. At work, we can't control every single thing. You get woken up, like you talked about, you wear the whoop, I wear the Aura ring, and I see the data myself, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's probably not the best. And then it gives you this score of like 25, and you're like, oh my goodness, gosh, like how, and it starts to stress you out. That's why I just check it in the middle of the day or the afternoon, because if I check my score early in the morning, it mentally kind of puts me in a place where like, oh, I can't move today. I'm done today. So you kind of got to be mindful a little bit. on checking your score. If you check it right when you wake up on this Aura ring, it's like, oh, I'm not doing anything today. And I've gotten some pushback from people that I work with and from, people that are just saying like, well, night I can't set an alarm at night because that's the time where my family and we watch a movie and we now spend this time together, and maybe we watch two movies and I go all the way to one, and then I ask like, okay, so what time do you wake up? Like, oh, I always wake up at 5, I always wake up at 6. Like, dude, you have to make a decision. You have to prioritize your health, or else you're not going to be there for your family. You have to give yourself that rest and that recovery, like you talked about. I'm not going to argue with you. Maybe you can spend some time during the day as a refreshed, well recovered dad or mom that you can spend that quality time with your family in the day. Don't sacrifice everything, right? You're sacrificing sleep at work, you're sacrificing sleep at home because you want to watch movies. You're going to have to make a decision. And the decision should be you so that you can show up best for your family, because we're seeing those numbers. And before we started recording here, we talked about how both of us are seeing firefighters leave the fire service early, 15, 18, 20 years. And I'm starting to see it more and more. I have a close friend who went out at 16 recently. He's just done. So what do you attribute that to?
I think it's a combination of factors, but here's what we can break down at a very basic level. First, we have to understand that the fire service isn't what it was 20 or 30 years ago, right? So what do I mean
Yeah.
by that? Well, I can use my own department as an example. I worked at a small 30, fully staffed at 30 people, 2 miles north of the Detroit border, and high call volume. But if you look at pre and post 2008, during the economic downfall there, you can see a trend with the types of calls that were incorporated. There was a time in history, and some people on the job today can still remember, like, the beginnings of this, where EMS was not attached to fire, right? Medical response wasn't attached at all. It's totally separate. So the integration of that, the lifestyle things, and firefighters and the fire service being kind of steeped in tradition, there's this trend, whether it's new technology, changing circumstances, where as a community we resist the changes that might be practical for the lifestyle of what the job brings now. So we look at this from a couple of different angles, but 2008, for example, at the department I worked at, they had a call volume of roughly 2,300 calls every year. Now, when I was on last July, we were heading to north of 6,000 calls. That's a dramatic increase in call volume. Now, what has changed in accordance with this, and this is the same all across the country, is not only has the call volume nearly tripled, but the staffing has also been reduced at most of these departments. So you have less staff for more calls. And you have, at 2008, 2006, 2007, at this department in specific, just because I can keep using it as an example, fully staffed was 42 people, and they weren't ALS. So this department, when I was there, was, everybody up to the chief was a paramedic. I had to maintain that. But the types of calls that were coming in, what firefighters were spending their time doing, talk about, hey, why are people leaving? Well, let's put the math together. You have 30% or 25% less staffing. You have triple the call volume. And let's talk about the types of calls that they're going to. We could just, call a spade a spade. How many of those medical calls that you go to being woken up at 2, 3 in the morning are calls where they're not emergent, right? You might go lights to them, but when you get there, you find out it's, hey, I stubbed my toe and got 3 cars in the driveway. Nobody wants to take me to the hospital. I want to go with you, right? And that story tells itself so often. One of the crazier ones that I had been on is I remember coming in and the guy was like, yeah, my teeth have been itchy. And I was like, hey, when was the last time you went to the dentist? And he's like, I don't go to the dentist. I was like, I think the dentist might be a better option. No, I want to go to the ER. Okay, let's go. So
Yeah.
why am I bringing up these stories? Because it's those kinds of stories. I've never met a firefighter that was like jaded or frustrated by going to a call where somebody was genuinely in need of help, in need of danger. The calls that make firefighters frustrated, jaded over the course of repetition and years are going to be the calls where they're spending their time doing that. They're sacrificing sleep for people that, probably could have gone to an urgent care or going and using the medical service as a convenience factor, not an emergency. And so there's this discrepancy between what am I actually doing and what did I think I was going to be doing when I got on the job. And it's not to say that you don't help people. It's to say that the quantity of those calls that are non-emergent and make people frustrated, jaded, and want to leave and burned out, they're much higher than they used to be. So how do you, again, recover, have the mindset? What is your mindset around service, around leadership, around what we're here to do? And what is your expectation of yourself and the job that you work? When you talk about controlling the controllables, well, you can't control when the tones drop and you can't control what people are going to call for. You can control how you respond, how you view it, and your perspective, your acceptance of it, and how you're going to lead yourself through that situation when you have every right to be frustrated. But at the end of the day, the only person that hurts is you. So we talk about, hey, why are people leaving earlier? Well, they're probably feeling the culminated effects of all of the things that I brought up. Higher call volume in general, years of frustration and burnout, and time away from their family. We haven't even got into like how many people are enforcing mandatory overtime now. Hey, I know your shift was supposed to be over in an hour, but you're going to be here for another 12 to 24, which is a whole other can of worms. But yeah, I would say it's just, you could practically draw the lines and the conclusions by like, well, the job has changed and we haven't always like risen to the practical changes that our culture, our systems, and our structures might need to accommodate the reality of the job.
Yeah. So many good points there. Definitely having the mindset of how am I going to provide this service, and constantly having to challenge yourself to remind yourself that I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve. It's easy to talk about it, right? We're well rested. I got a full night of sleep last night here at home. It's my day off. But if you're on a 72, 96, to keep that mindset of I'm just here to serve and I'm happy to be here, for any human being, that begins to weigh on you a little bit more, right? You start to get a little, like you mentioned, jaded. You start to get a little, what we call in our department, a little salty. Whoa, got a little salt there, man. But that's just normal. That's a normal human reaction. And how are you just supposed to keep that bottled in? All of that frustration of having to respond to the person who's just sleeping on the sidewalk. Couldn't tell you how many times working in West LA, we get called to a person that is down middle of the night. We get there and the person is just sleeping. It is a homeless person that doesn't have anywhere to stay or chooses not to walk into one of these overnight centers. They just want to sleep on the sidewalk, and that's their right. They can do whatever they want to do. But for the medics and for the engine company and for all of us, you just drive back to the station and you just wish someone would be like, hey, you need help? Hey, no, you're sleeping? Okay. Right. So that begins to weigh on people. The types of responses, the nursing homes, we have tons of nursing homes in our district, and a lot of the calls can be super frustrating. And I'm not going to get into all of the types of calls that we go on because we'll be here for days. But those are the two that come to mind nightly that we respond to, that begin to weigh on you, begin to cause all of these hormonal issues, all of this fight or flight, all of this stress response, cortisol. Now you wake up and now you got 2 more days to go. And now you're chugging the coffee, you're chugging the energy drink, and now you're just building up this machine that you don't necessarily even notice that you're building. It's a big ball of frustration within. Keep it bottled up inside. But yeah, then it starts to now weigh on you, and you start to think like, well, gosh, this isn't really what I signed up for. I thought we were going to go to fires. And everybody that you talk to, if it's somebody that actually needs our help, man, we will bend over backwards, because that's what we as firefighters do. We respond, we help, we save the person, we help the family, whatever it is, or put this person back in the bed in the nursing home. That stuff really starts to weigh on you, and it starts to build up that frustration. And I can see how people get salty, because it's just not, gosh, what, I feel like I'm capable of more. I want to do more, but it is frustrating. And so now we finally get a day off, and we have these high cortisol. We have the fight or flight from waking up 3 or 4 times last night. And now we go home. We chugged a couple of coffees and we enter the home. And I miss my family. I love my family. Give them a little hug and a kiss. But you're so wound up, you don't even understand. You don't even know. You haven't took the time to really understand the environment you're walking into. And now you start to, now you get snappy. What are some things that firefighters can do to at least understand, dude, you need to shut that off. And you need to now get into this family mode, because it's not going to work.
Yeah. I think that taking that time and realizing that you can't pour from an empty cup is the concept here. So we see this, whether it's on the job or whether it's at home. We see firefighters, taking up the mindset that, well, I am a person of service. I am a person who's a problem solver. I am here to put others first. And while that's admirable, it does have a limit. So you use this analogy of the cup. It's like, hey, as a firefighter, your job is to continually pour into everyone's cup. And then this can be your community, can be your crew, it can be your family, your friends, to be of service. But the problem is that when you pour to the point of emptiness, well, it still feels like you're being of service, but you're not really pouring anything into those cups. You just have your cup upside down and it's empty. So we need to flip the equation and say, instead of pouring out my own cup, how do I set up a system? That's the key word, a system, a structure, a lifestyle that keeps it so that my cup is upright, but I put it under the faucet and I just let that faucet run. And now I have my other cups underneath that. And instead of pouring out from my own cup, I don't tip. I just let it overflow. And then what naturally happens to the cups below it is that you give of what you have extra. You give of what you can. And then that actually provides to the cups below it, to the family, to the community, to the crew, to whatever else is important to you. But you give of the extra, you give of your abundance. You don't sacrifice what it is, because then you're not actually giving anything at all. So it's this counterintuitive process that means like, hey, it sounds selfish on the first thought, but you prioritize yourself, right? In my program, we talk about something called the 10 laws of reclaim. And my business is called Reclaim Firefighter Fitness. What are the 10 laws of reclaim? Law number 6 is prioritize yourself, right? But why? Why shouldn't I be putting others first? By prioritizing yourself, you are putting them first. And that is the distinction that we have to make. So you get off this shift, 48, 72 hours, whatever. It could just be a rough 24. What are the things that I have to do to make sure that I prioritize myself so that I can actually show up as the version that my family deserves? What's the version of myself that my family deserves me to show up as? And that might mean taking a couple of hours to decompress, to relax, to get a short nap in. See, what we see is like guys, come home and then they'll fall asleep for 6-7 hours and then they can't fall asleep again until 3 a.m. Well, that's your circadian rhythm. So where's the balance there, right? Like, hey, maybe it's a 45 minutes, maybe it's a 30-minute nap just to refresh. Okay, I have to do that before I tackle anything else in the day. Maybe it's getting in that workout that if you keep kicking the can down the road, it's just not going to happen, right? Because the truth is, in life, the things that you do first get done. So maybe it's putting that priority and setting those boundaries for yourself that, hey, I can't just be on 10 the second I walk in through the door. So the lifestyle factors of like, hey, what does appropriate recovery look like following a shift? How do I set myself up? We talk about sleep. Well, a lot of people don't understand that setting yourself up for sleep starts in the first hour that you're awake. How do I set myself up for these things? And I think about doing that is having everyone on the same page that, hey, I have to establish some boundaries, but by doing so, I'm going to be able to show up as a better dad, a better mom, a better community member, a better firefighter when I'm able to do that and take care of the engine, because over the course of 25 years, that thing can get run down if I don't do something about it.
Yeah, it's something that as a firefighter and as a father, I always have to revert back to, if I don't take care of myself first, then I can't take care of others. I can't do the best. I can't show up as the best. I can't do all of the things that I want to do. And not only that, it's also emotionally, I want to react in a way that my kids look at and they're proud of, not somebody who, when I come into the house, they're walking on eggshells. They just can see, ooh, dad didn't sleep last night. Ooh, let's kind of stay away. Let's steer away. Or my wife says something that it's just a simple question that maybe we had already talked about, any little thing, and then it just sets you off. Why? I don't want that. And I know firefighters don't want that. So it is the awareness of, like you said, filling up your cup so that you can now overflow into the cups of others. Love that point, man. So we'll transition into food, because yes, the rest and the recovery is something that's very important, but you also got to remember that if you're cranking down energy drinks, if you're eating a bunch of donuts, which the public, drops off or someone brought in, and we're super appreciative of the public dropping them off, but sometimes, gosh, like 2-3 boxes of donuts and it's not going to help you, and you don't understand that. So where does food and nutrition come into play with all of this, and how you're showing up as the best version of yourself? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I think before we dive into that, we just have to understand a really important piece, which is like, to be a firefighter at its core is still, you're like a professional athlete. It might not feel like that at times, but if you can understand that and accept it, tactical athlete, hybrid athlete, whatever term or phrase you want to use, you have to understand like, all right, well, what does every other professional athlete do in the world? Right. And they might have a team dedicated to them. It might be different. I get that there are differences, but like, let's just look at it. They are on top of their sleep, they're on top of their training, and they're on top of their nutrition. So when we talk about these things, first of all, is an understanding of food and the fire service culture around it. What is really, really special about the fire service is the fact that we still break bread together, right? Is that we still sit down and eat and have that communal time. That's where a lot of bonding, rapport, and stress relief happens. But what we do is we tie that in with identity. And I'll tell you a story about my first week in the fire service, which involved me being admittedly very naive, but I walked into the fire service with a background in fitness, health, and nutrition. I already was into these things. I was a nerd, man. I got certified without even any intention of training people. I had zero intention of training people. And they were like, why are you doing it? It's because I want to learn. I want to know how to do this stuff for myself. I saw it as an investment in the skill set for me. And that's where it started. So I walked in the front door and I was already into things like meal prep, nutrition, tracking calories, having an understanding of how the body uses energy, what had to happen. And I walked in with my meal prep, and I'm sure you can imagine the looks, the comments, the under the breath, the discontent. And at first I was just like, that's weird. Maybe they just never seen somebody meal prep before. Maybe they're just not used to this. And it went on like that for about 6 days. And then I got sat down on the 7th. My first, I had my orientation week, and then my first 24-hour shift, I was sat down by my lieutenant. And I don't mean anything against this guy, and I'm not trying to highlight a picture of somebody that's like, oh my God, check this guy out. Like, what I'm trying to say is give context to the story. This man was 360 pounds. He's closer to 400 today, and he had a stroke at the age of 32. And this same person sat me down and said, hey, listen, I know you don't understand how things work in the fire service. I understand that this is your first department and you don't understand the culture. And I want to say that I'm not legally allowed to tell you to stop bringing your own food. However, if you don't stop, I am going to, we are going to run you out of here. And that became a moment. That's a core memory. Why? Because I made a decision to compromise on the standards that I walked in on for the sake of fitting in. And so I think that's a story that's not unique to me. How many things do we compromise on for ourselves for the sake of fitting in, for the sake of, being a part of the brotherhood? What I'll always stand behind is the value of eating together. What I won't stand behind is the idea that it should be whatever is being served at the table if it doesn't serve your purpose and your goals of longevity and health. So when I talk about this, I'm going to say, hey, can we stand as a fire service to make better nutritional choices? Is there room for both? And I believe that there is. However, we have to understand that most of the people making the meals, they haven't been put through a nutrition course. They don't know the difference between a meal that's going to serve you versus one that's going to hinder you. And that's one of the things that I'll stand behind, and I say, hey, like, if you really want to change things as a fire service, oh, well, I'm not responsible for making our own food. What can we do from a systemic level? We'll send people to trainings for anything. Say, hey, go do a 2-week pump course, and then calculate friction loss. And tell me the last time you were an engineer and you got on scene and you started getting out your pen and paper and calculating friction loss. Say, hey, we'll go do stuff like that. That's like not necessarily practical, but we won't even consider sending a guy who might be responsible for making food for an entire crew to a couple-week nutrition course so they can understand the basics. Why do we do stuff like that? So having an understanding, it doesn't have to be complicated, right? You and I know it's not complicated. It's just, but if you have zero understanding, if you've never even started the first step, how are you supposed to make progress? How are you supposed to make food that serves your crew instead of hinders them? So, okay.
Wow.
And here's the thing that I had to understand. I'll end on this point with nutrition. After time, I came to realize that this conversation wasn't even about the food. It was about the identity of that person. So when I came in and started making my own food and started doing the things I was doing, well, that wasn't seen as this like, oh, he's just trying to be healthy. It was seen as he's rejecting the cultural components of the fire service that make it special. I've come to understand that this individual, he didn't see it as a threat to food. He saw it as a threat to culture. He saw it as a threat to, this is a piece of my identity that you're not accepting, and you need to have this as a part of your identity too to be here. Because we attach that piece to how we view ourselves, the world around us, and our purpose in the world. And so it wasn't a rejection of food. It was a rejection of, you were rejecting the culture that we represent. And so it felt much more personal to him and to others. But what if we could do both? What if we could keep the thing that made it important, right? The thing which was eat together, and separate the, do I always have to eat the same food? Or if everybody's on the same page, is there room? Like, again, we could fix this problem by making people more educated about their nutritional choices, making the cooks more educated on their nutritional choices, and then everyone benefits. You know, it was never about the food, but we have a lot of culture and identity attached to it.
Ooh, man, that was some fire right there, dude. Yes, absolutely. You brought up an amazing point as why don't we train our cooks who are feeding the crews who can make or break the rest of the evening? How many times have you had a dinner? After the dinner, you went into a food coma, or everybody had to run to the bathroom because, oh, yeah, that did not sit well. How many times have you guys seen that? How many times, I don't eat out. So if we're on a super busy night and guys are, hey, let's go get some whatever, fast food or whatever, see it all the time. Hey, they pick up some burritos from the spot, and then what happens? Everybody's running to the bathroom afterwards. That is a huge liability. That is a hindrance. Say you get a working structure fire or whatever, right? That can very much so impede operations and make a difference. That can move the needle. Gosh, I love that point of sending our cooks to something that is, knowledge based, that can help everybody, not only that cook, but the whole crew. And the misconception that eating healthy is gross, I mean, I think that's pretty much out of the window now. Like there's plenty of healthy recipes. And I am fortunate to say that my crews, we have adopted this, and it's something that I'm seeing a lot more across the fire service. But for myself and my crew, man, I'm pretty lucky that my crew is on mostly the same eating page, that hey, we're going to eat something that's healthy, that tastes amazing, and that's going to fuel us. It's going to push us in the right direction, and that's not going to hold us and weigh us down. And to the point that you made where you brought your own food, oh my goodness, that one is so true, man. I have shared this before, but just to make the point is, I used to bring my own food for lunch and for dinner, and then some of the older guys that were there before me was like, "Oh, you got your own food, huh?" And then they give me this nickname, IGMer. "Oh, you're an IGMer, huh? I got mine. Oh, I got mine. You're good. IGMer over here." And that just touches on the point that you made, that it's a reflection. It's not on me, it's on them. It's that I am challenging the culture. I am challenging them personally. Maybe they take it that way, but it wasn't the point at all. I just wanted food because I also have been into health and wellness and fitness well before being a firefighter. I played college sports. I was an athlete. I understood the importance of fueling myself correctly to get to where I want my body to be, to respond how I want it to be, to look how I want it to be. And if I want the aesthetics or if I want the functionality, whatever it may be, that's my choice. And that's not on you. But the IGMer comments, gosh, it weighed on me. And yes, like you, I allowed it to make a decision for me because I figured, okay, well, this is just the way things are. And for a while, yes, I stopped bringing food and I just ate out and I allowed the external to control my internal, what was important to me. The way I feel is important to me. And if I want to feel great, if I want to have the energy, I I can't allow somebody externally to control my internal. So that I believe is a huge learning curve. And you see it more so in a newer firefighter because you don't have the acceptance maybe of your crew. Maybe you haven't been in enough battles, right? You haven't seen enough, or you don't have the experience, or you just got here, dude. Like, just fall in line. And I can see it as a challenge for a newer firefighter because for me, as a newer firefighter during those times, I couldn't say anything. Like, I just want to be accepted. I just want my crew and I want everyone to just look at me as somebody part of the crew. I don't want to stand out. But you can do everything right, man. You do the training, you do the calls, you get your drills, you do everything right. But once you say, "Oh, I'm out on food," ooh, it's like you personally, you're like calling them out. You're like name calling them. It's like, ooh, we are not friends anymore. And it's like, wait, dude. Like, I don't mean it personally. This isn't a personal attack on you. I love you. You're awesome. But I just cannot eat that food. I'm not gonna do it. So yeah, it's easier now for me, because guys know that I eat a certain way, and I respectfully and tactfully decline if it doesn't align with my food choices. But there's also a way that you can get that wrong. Oh, that's just not healthy, man. You're gonna get so fat, and you're just doing it wrong, and all these studies, and that right there definitely will get you will kind of outcast yourself in a negative way. But if you're respectful and if you politely just decline, I haven't found that most people have a problem with that. So let's be real. Do you think it's practical for all firefighters to track every single meal, to track their macros, to weigh their food? Is that something that's actually practical, or is it something that you steer away from? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think it's one of two things. I think that the practice and the educational component, this is what I tell people in my program. I say, listen, do this for 1 month. Do it for 1 month. And if you want to throw out the practice after that month, then okay. But I promise you, even if you don't stick to it, it's going to change and revolutionize the way that you understand your food. It is going to be very educational. You are going to realize, like, holy cow, I didn't realize such a small serving of peanut butter can be, I didn't realize that the oil in the pan could, and it will cause you to think about and have a different understanding and awareness of the food that you consume. Now, I've said that to almost every firefighter that has come through my program, and zero of them have said, like, I don't want to do this anymore, after doing so. Now, here's the thing that when we talk about the keyword being practical, you're going to be able to do it. This is where the all or nothing thing comes in. Well, if I'm not going to weigh my food all the time, I'm not going to practice these principles every single day, every meal, then, like, why would I do it at all? The real balance and the real practicality lasts in the balance that you're going to have in doing this, right? And you take that knowledge that you have and that awareness and you apply it to the moments in life where, like, you're not going to have access to those things. And we live in a day of like AI. You have access to things now that weren't possible 2 or 3 years ago. So even so much as, built into my app, we have like an AI, you take a picture of it and does a, full breakdown, track your calories and stuff, your protein from a meal that you eat at the fire hall. But, at the same time, I say, hey, use this as a supplement to what you're already doing. Focus on the foundations, focus on the practices, because those things aren't perfect yet. They're going to continue to get better, but it needs context. It's imperfect. But is it better than just playing the guessing game? Yeah, it is. Is it possible to learn the concepts and apply them, like even if it's not perfect? Because again, we have to come back to this idea that the goal is not perfection. The goal is more awareness. The goal is having a baseline understanding. Do it when you can, and then apply the principles. So what we're trying to teach here isn't harsh rules. They're principles that you can continue to follow. Hey, is this meal going to have enough protein? Is it going to have enough fiber? Is it going to have, a good balance of fats and carbohydrates? Okay. Like, can I follow those principles without measuring every single thing? Yeah, I can. But can I also realize that, hey, maybe it's only 10 or 20% of the time that I'm doing that, and the other times I'm good? It's not practical to say, hey, walk around with a scale in your back pocket when you're on shift, when you're doing whatever, when chaos is a part of your routine. That's not practical. Can you understand the principles behind what we're talking about? Can you opt for more aware choices? Can you do more with less? Like, that is the idea. And then if 80% of it is still filled up, hey, can I eat at home and do this? Yeah, I can. Are there moments where it's not going to be possible? Yeah, that's also a practical understanding of the lifestyle. Even me, after doing this for 12 years, do I weigh every single thing that goes in my mouth? No. Guess what, man? I'm going out tonight. We're getting Detroit style pizza. All right. Like but I'm planning ahead for it. Right. I'm making sure that everything's in line to do that so that I can still enjoy myself and have those life moments that really make life worth living with the people that I care about. Does that mean that it all has to be out on a scale and that it's absolute perfection? Because I've also seen people take this too far, where it's like, hey, I'm out to the family dinner, at the restaurant, and they bring a bag and they start pulling out their meal prep at the table, and they're like, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to be eating the meal prep. I'm like, are you stepping on stage in 2 weeks? No. I'm like, okay, well then, like, hey, I get it if you're prepping for a show, but that's bodybuilding, right? So it's a different thing. Yeah. Most firefighters are not bodybuilders. I know a few. We've met similar people in the space. There's a couple guys that do bodybuilding and they're firefighters. Kudos to them, because that's a lot of work to manage both of those requirements. So, and even then, hopefully they're not doing that year round. It's like, no, I'm doing this for like a month before my show. Like, okay. We also know that that's like not a permanent thing. We're talking about how do we have a lifestyle system that is going to enable you to stay consistent over the course of 20, 25, 30 years. That becomes different. That means you have to have balance. That means you have to have flexibility. That means you have to be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome, not just on the job, but with your nutrition. Okay. So we focus on principles and we focus on being practical, which means understanding. Again, that 1 month where you just weigh everything for a month. I promise you, it's going to change how you view it for the rest of your days. And you should continue that practice a lot of the time. Are there going to be moments where you're not going to do it? Mm-hmm. But we have so many more tools nowadays that we didn't have beforehand. I even go through this practice with my clients where, hey, you go out to eat with your family? Yeah, I do. How often? Yeah, like once a week, maybe. Go out? Okay. Go into ChatGPT, have it give it the order that you think you're most likely to get and what kind of portion sizes you'll do, and then make the rest of your day fit the general estimate of what you're going to be consuming after that meal. I did this recently for myself. I gave it an order that I thought would be good for me, and guess how many calories it was going to be? It was 5,000. 5,000 calories. Say, hey, this is the total that you're about approximately 4,500 to 5,000 is what you'll be eating in this meal. And I went, oh my God. Like, I didn't realize, like, I do it for myself. This was a few days ago. And so I changed what I was going to eat because I was like, geez, like, okay, that's basically breaking even, if I'm trying to lose weight for the week in one meal.
Yeah.
So like you have the means in a way that, like, I would argue you have more access to tools to help you with this than you ever have. And I'm not saying rely on it 100%. I'm just saying that, like, this is another tool in the toolbox that wasn't available 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's always going to be about balance and not perfection. That's my answer. The practical thing is learn the skills, understand the principles, and then be disciplined enough and plan ahead enough that you can still enjoy the moments in life that make it worth living.
Yeah. So good. I also tell the people that I work with, hey, track your food. I just tell them 2 weeks because to me, I feel like the learning curve of 2 weeks of weighing everything and putting it into the app, you learn so much about food. You learn portions and then you learn calories and then you learn macros. Like what is this macro? What is carbs? You start to learn and you start to input it and then you start to get interested in it. And like you, the people that I work with, they're now kind of nerding out on it. Like, I didn't get my fats or I didn't get this much protein. How can I get more protein? And the technology that is available to us is unlimited. Literally, it is unlimited information that if you just ask it, it will spit out maybe a little generic, maybe not tailored to you, but it will give you a ballpark of what it is that you need. So, same thing with me. If I'm out and I'll have some dessert, I'll have some whatever, and obviously carrying a scale is not practical. Just take a picture of it. Ask ChatGPT, what are the macros, or how much do you think this ginormous whatever mango is, and then it'll give you the macros. That's about 60 grams of carbs and maybe 150 calories. And then you start to learn and then you start to understand calories in, calories out. That was one thing that I always heard people say before I started tracking, that what does that even mean? Well, you do it for 2 weeks, then it's like this. It clicks. Doing it for a month, you'll be an expert in a month. Um, and then you'll start to understand the surplus, your basal metabolic rate. What are you burning at rest? What are you burning if you have a big, busy day? If you have a good workout, all of these things you start to understand. And a 5,000 calorie meal, you right off the bat, when you said that, I was like, ooh, yeah, that's like your entire week. Well, you'll start to learn that. You'll start to learn your body and all of that treadmill work you did, or that workout you did, or the Stairmaster, or whatever you did that week. You'll understand that, dude, I just erased all of it by eating this. Oh no. So then you start to make more educated food choices, and now you are building that structure. You're building that knowledge base of, okay, I know I need this many calories, and if I go over, hey, that's okay. But if I go over 1,000 or 2,000, I now understand that I wrecked my whole week. I just worked my butt off for this one meal. So I'm going to change the menu choice to this. So that right there is the goal, for you to be aware of your food choices, to be aware of things that you do have an effect. Consistency will always trump perfection. It will always be the goal. Just be consistent. Just know that if you're going to go out, like you mentioned, with your family, you don't have to bring the meal prep, dude. Just order something, order a steak, order something high in protein, which will fill you up and you'll get to where you want to go. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. Love it, Robbie. Love it. So with all of that, we still find it easy to make excuses. There's just so many excuses. Some are legit, some maybe not so much. We have as firefighters, I think there's always like, oh, I was busy, man. We didn't sleep. And okay, this, I can eat this because I'm just tired. But what do you think excuses are? Why are there so many excuses?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, right? It's one that we talk about a lot in my program. And I think we also have to realize that there's a pretty strong culture in the fitness space of anti-excuses, take radical response in the fire service, especially, right? Take extreme ownership, do this, do that. So why do people do it? Why do people make excuses? Well, we believe the stories that we tell ourselves, right? We believe the image, the identity that we've come to accept, and we're really good at rationalizing our own decisions, especially after we've already made them. We say, oh, well, you don't understand. Like I did XYZ. There's something called logical procrastination, right? This is something I used to really, really do and self-sabotage myself with. Well, I'm not doing this because I XYZ. I have a whole plan. This is the whole thing. I can tell you about how, this is not necessarily directly related to the fire service, but before I started making content, I avoided it for about 18 months and did everything in my power to prepare for making content and to be good at making content, except for practicing the thing that I wanted to get good at. I spent $7,000 on filming equipment. Ask me how much of that I need and how much of that I use today, when it turned out all I really needed was a cell phone and a can-do attitude. That's one example, right? But I convinced myself this story that I couldn't start until I did all of these other things. I couldn't do the thing I really wanted to do or that I should be doing because I had all these other things to take care of before I did. Now, how often do we apply that same kind of narrative to like the structure of what we're talking about with health and fitness? I can't, you don't understand. I got, 2 kids at home. As soon as they grow up a little bit, I'm going to do this. As soon as, I get a night at the station where, I can actually get a good night's rest, I'll go get that workout. As soon as fill in the blank. But the thing is, we come back to this concept of like, what are the controllables in your life and what are the things that you genuinely don't have control over, right? What are the absolutes that I can say something about? And for most of us, why do we make excuses? Because it's easier to believe and to accept that I can't get this result because I am unique and I am, in this category of you don't understand and my life is different and XYZ. It's easier to accept that story than it is to look in the mirror and say, yeah, I just really haven't been taking responsibility for the things that are actually under my control. Are there things outside of your control? Yeah. But are those things going to continue to happen? So when you talk about like, hey, is this a lifestyle choice or a decision-making pattern that is going to serve my long-term goals? Or is it just kind of kicking the can down the road? When you use things like, hey, when stuff settles down, I'll start. Well, have you ever had that thought and then just as soon as that thing that you imagined would be over, like life throws you another curveball? As soon as the shift relaxes and then it doesn't, as soon as this life event, this circumstance, this thing changes, well, then life introduces another barrier, roadblock, and obstacle for you to overcome. And it's until we realize that you can either go through it, climb over it, or walk around it, that's where the real change happens. And say, hey, we pride ourselves as firefighters in the idea of improvise, adapt, and overcome when you get on the job. But here's the thing that we don't do. You ever had inaccurate dispatch information come through? You ever had you show up on scene and it's not really what you were expecting when you got there? So this is the most interesting observation that I've noticed about the fire service and firefighters, which is what happens in those moments? Do you like pack up your bags, get back in the truck and leave? Or do you go flip a switch and you say like, I'm going to solve this problem no matter what it takes? And so firefighters are masters of this, whether it's like inaccurate dispatch information or no dispatch information. You still walk in and you're like, hey, this is supposed to be a lift assist and now I'm doing CPR. You ever done that? Like Do you leave because it wasn't a lift assist and you didn't walk in with all the right information, or you were kind of set back by a obstacle or a barrier? No, you and your crew, you enter into this problem solving mindset that it's like, I'm a solution. I'm going to find a solution. I'm going to make this work. And hey, maybe they don't even have a protocol for what I'm walking into. You ever done that? Like, hey, walk in. This issue is very unique, and I don't necessarily have a set of rules to tell me how to handle this. And yet still, every single time you and your crew come together and you say, and you figure it out and you become a problem solver and you literally manifest the principle of improvise, adapt, and overcome. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, how do I like learn how to, work some stuff around my meals? Oh, it's impossible. I can't do it. How do I fit in, 2 45-minute workouts a week? Can't do it. There's literally no time. It's impossible because of my schedule. I'm like, where did that mindset go? Why do we turn off that switch when we get home? When the key to your success on the job is radical, extreme action. Action, and not second guessing yourself. And guess what? Sometimes you might not take all of the right actions, and yet still, it is so much better than sitting there second guessing yourself and freezing or rationalizing why you can't solve the problem. So where is this distinction between the person that you are on shift and how you solve problems there, and the problems that represent themselves in the culture of the fire service or in your day-to-day life as a firefighter outside of being on shift? So if we could just take this skill set that you already have and implant it into your day-to-day life, follow through with the same kind of attitude that you do when you come across a problem on a call, well, then literally nothing will stop you. So it's so crazy because I've rarely seen any other population have that skill set and then just not use it at all in any other area of your life. The greatest thing is that you already have the ability. You just need to learn how to flip on the switch in different situations. Why do we make excuses? Because it's easier to confront the fact or the belief that it is outside of my control, because then I don't have to take responsibility for it. It's the harder, less traveled path to say, if I was thinking like I did when I was on shift coming across a problem, there's probably a solution to this if I was being very, very brutally honest with myself.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So many good points there. It is the non-negotiables that we have. Like you said, we arrive on scene, and it is a non-negotiable that we don't handle this, right? We will not allow ourselves to be, oh, okay, we got dispatched to the wrong type of call. This is actually CPR. This is a person in full cardiac arrest. We did not get dispatched to this. Let's pack our bags and go. Absolutely not. That's a non-negotiable. You cannot happen because you have the servant. You are a servant. We now move into our personal lives, and we don't have those non-negotiables anymore. We don't have that foundation of, I can do it. I will get through this. I will figure this out. We as a crew, why do we have those excuses? I have too many kids. I have this practice and that practice and dance and softball and the million other things. Yeah, so does everybody else. There is 24 hours in the day. How are you utilizing those 24 hours? I understand that, dude, maybe you're gassed out. You got 3 or 4 the night before or the last 2 or 3 nights. I totally understand that. Adjust. How can you adjust? You adjust at work. Can you get some steps in? Can you go for a walk? Can you get the sunlight? Can you reset your circadian rhythm? Just walk outside. Go outside, get the sunlight, allow the sun to hit your eyes. There's always something that we can do to take care of ourselves to move forward. If you need a nap, take a nap. But like you mentioned, be careful about taking the 6 or 7 hour nap. Definitely do not drink all of the caffeine. That's one thing that we see that is a huge, huge thing in the fire service. And I myself do drink coffee and I have an energy drink from time to time, but it can totally be overdone. I'm seeing it all the time where you think it's helping, but it's actually hurting. It's hurting the entire recovery process. But yeah, but I got to be aware and alert when my kids come home. Well, if you're tired at night, that's perfectly normal. If you're at home, it's okay to be tired. You don't have to be wired 24/7. But yeah, but I just won't have the energy to hang with my family or hang. Dude, that's fine. You can allow yourself to be tired. Your body is tired. You do not need the energy drink in the evening, in the afternoon to hang out with your family. They should understand that this is the schedule that dad works, mom works, and I'm going to be tired for the first day, but tomorrow let me get some rest tonight. Tomorrow I bounce back and we're back in action. So, like I said, those excuses, everybody has them, and it's not to say that I don't um, allow for any grace with myself or with others, but you also have to have those non-negotiables for yourself that you just won't allow. You will not allow yourself to fall all the way off track. And there's also a point of overcomplicating things. I know that there's a million ways to train, a million ways that we can do things. But what do you think firefighters get wrong with just like overcomplicating things?
Yeah, I mean, we could make a whole other podcast episode on this concept, right? Like it's simplicity being the key, you know. And the last thing I think one of the problems that we see is we get like experts. A chief will think like, "Hey, let's get a, let's get a trainer in, talk to some of these people. Let's get a nutritionist in. Let's get a XYZ expert to come in." And these people like fire service, right, wrong, and different. Like we trust firefighters. Say, hey, anybody that comes in that doesn't understand the experience, has worked the culture, has been boots on the ground, they're probably going to discredit a lot of what they say because they're like, they don't get it. And it's true because it's a small percentage of the population. It's, like 1% less than, so
Yeah.
these experts come in and then they come up with all these explanations, plans, or they don't know how to talk to firefighters. And they, they come up with solutions that aren't practical, that lack the understanding of the lifestyle and the things that go on at a fire department day to day. That's one thing. Uncomplicated too. It's just like there's so much bad information out there. Hey, should I do carnivore, keto, paleo, fruitarian, like fill in the blank. There's
Mediterranean, yeah.
so many things, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to these things, it's like the best stuff that you can do is the thing that you can stick with that actually like benefits your health. So, excuse me, those two categories being, why do they overcomplicate it? Well, because that's what the fitness industry teaches. And because there's so much noise. And because, again, they aren't given even the baseline information. So it's confusing because there's too much information, too many conflicting opinions, too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. No pun intended. But the truth is, if you could just boil it down to its simple components and do it imperfectly, even, the imperfect action is always going to beat the perfect preparation. So what does all this information do? It causes analysis paralysis. And say, I don't, have it just like analyzing. I'm overwhelmed with information to the point where I don't even want to do anything because everything is going to kill me. Simplicity too. It's this idea of the all or nothing again, right? How many firefighters have you talked to? Maybe you've been this person. I certainly have. That when it comes to like their workouts, they'll do these. They'll go in this cycle of, I get really motivated, right? This temporary spurt of motivation, and then I'm going to hit it really hard. 6-7 days a week. I don't stop. Start to see some progress, but then like life throws you one of those curveballs we were talking about later, or you just get burned out, you get unmotivated, you have a moment where it's like, all right, I'm supposed to be working out every single day of the week, and then I miss a day. And now I wasn't perfect. And then that day becomes a week, and that week becomes a month, and that month turns into several months before. And in that whole time, I'm trying to psych myself back up to do the thing that I was doing, which is just burning the candle at both ends. It's like, why'd you put it off for so long? Well, because I just didn't want the honest answer to that is I just didn't want to go back to living my life the way that I was. So when we talk about, hey, what's realistic, what's long-term, I'll go back to a piece of advice that my very first mentor in life taught me, which was, hey, Robbie, take the long road. It's faster. And I said for a long time,
Ooh.
I was like, what the hell is that? How does the long road be faster?
That's good.
So the long road, the right road, the sustainable road, right? Which I would argue isn't eating in a 1,000-calorie deficit or eating 1,000 calories total, working out every single day of the week with a hard hitting 2-hour hit routine. You have to ask yourself, is this something that I can maintain over the course of 20 years, 30 years, the rest of my life? And if the answer to that question is no, then what's the purpose in doing it? If you get results from that, but you're not able to keep it up, then what's the point? When we say take the long road, it's faster. Well, when you take the long road, you do it the right way, and you actually spend the time on the foundation of something that's sustainable, then you don't have to keep starting over again. So the long road means taking the time, maybe not seeing immediate progress right away, but as you build a sustainable foundation, you make consistent progress over the course of months, years, and decades, instead of hitting it super hard, starting over every 3 months. Because then we just stay in this cycle where we stay stuck in place over and over and over and over again. And we say, hey, every time you restart, it takes longer to get back to that point where you're ready to go again. And so that 3 months that you didn't do, well, the next time it takes 4, 5, 6. And all of a sudden I haven't worked out in a couple of years. I've heard this story time and time again among so many firefighters that have joined my program. It's all of a sudden it's been 3 years I haven't lifted a weight. It's been 3 years I haven't challenged my body outside of a structure fire. It's been 3 years since I tried to do anything with my nutrition. Because even the point of starting over again, that comes along with burnout in and of itself. So take the long road, it's faster. Take the path less traveled that you're going to be able to maintain for the rest of your life, and stop starting over. And that can be the simple things, man. It's like, hey, what are the components? Like, how much are you moving? How many steps are you getting? Can you get in a few weightlifting sessions a week? Can you get in a day or two of cardio? Can you focus on your diet enough to actually lose weight, but not in a way that's extreme, that leaves you fatigued, tired, and irritable, but in a way where, hey, maybe I'm losing a half a pound to a pound a week. Can I keep that up for 3 months and then I'm down 20 pounds and then rinse and repeat the process? Can I continue these things? And is this something that I'm going to be able to keep up because it's a lifestyle choice, not a diet, not a temporary, not an extreme approach? It's something you can stick to. I've had people ask me, hey, what's the best diet in your program? It's the one that you can stick to consistently. It's the one that you see the results that you're looking for, that actually prove themselves to be improving your health and your performance, and the one that you don't ever have to give up, because then you get to keep the result. And see, the thing is, with getting in shape as a firefighter or as any human being, the truth is going to be that a lot of us have lost weight, a lot of us have gotten in shape, and just as much, they've gained it back. They've lost it after time. They haven't maintained it. So there's nothing special about those things. There is something special about having a system and a lifestyle that you can maintain over time. And that has to be practical and aligned with the lifestyle that you actually live.
Ooh, Robbie, so many good points there, man. Consistency over perfection, not chasing the quick fix, but is this something that you can do over the long haul for the rest of your life? Lots of fad diets, lots of, we can name them. There's a million, but the basics will always hold true. We're about an hour and a half almost in, Robbie. Where can people find you?
Can find me in a couple of places. I have a YouTube channel called Reclaim Firefighter Fitness, where I post videos consistently on how to get in shape as a firefighter long term by doing less and focusing on recovery first. Most of these programs, generic fitness programs, they're going to put recovery kind of as the afterthought. As a firefighter, it's going to be my stance that it should be your foundation, right? Is how do you recover? How do you pour back into yourself? And how do you live a balanced life over the course of 20 or 25 years that doesn't have you sacrificing too much time with the people that you care about? You can find me there on YouTube. You can also find me at fitter_fighter on Instagram. Those are my two primary channels. And linked on both of them, I have a free firefighter reset protocol that you can find in the bio of either channel, which comes along with a free school community as well.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate you joining me here this morning. And for our listeners, I hope that you guys are able to take a nugget or two from this episode. If you found this interesting, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing. Thank you so much, Robbie. And thank all of you for joining us here today. Have a wonderful week. God bless.